Hello, City Church family. So good to be with you today. Just a quick reminder on our church vision. At City Church, we're people empowered by the Spirit to proclaim Christ so that even in great opposition, and here's what we want to focus on today, this phrase, the gospel might reach all peoples and all places. And next week, thereby bringing all of those who believe into God's family, which is visibly represented through local churches. So as you work your way through Acts, you're going to notice those two truths, that they're sharing the gospel with all peoples. And the means by which they're sharing the gospel is in all places. They're going everywhere in all different types of situations to share the gospel. So let's start with the first one. We're called to share the gospel to all peoples. Jesus is the hope of the world. He's not just the hope of Christians. He's not a tribal deity. We, as Christians, cannot say, well, Jesus is good for us, but, Buddha's good for you, or Muhammad's good for you, or, your belief in crystals or whatever is good for you. It's okay for you to have your own beliefs. No, the Bible clearly teaches that without Jesus, no one is saved. No one is brought to the Father except through Jesus. And so that's the reason there is a urgency in our hearts to share the gospel with all peoples. When you open up the book of Acts, there's kind of a table of context found at the beginning of Acts. It says, Jesus says to his disciples, "You'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth." And that's the way the book of Acts unfolds, that the gospel begins to expand outward to all of these different places, beginning with the Jews in Jerusalem, but moving outwards to those that were Jewish, but half Jewish, kind of ethnically a little different, the Samaritans, and then moving even further out to the ends of the earth, reaching all the way to Rome. So you're going to see Christians in the book of Acts share the gospel with an Ethiopian, with Samaritans, with people from Egypt, or people from Greece, or people from Arabia, or people from Rome, or people from Libya, or people who are Persians. They're intentionally sharing the gospel with the nations. Because we know that in Revelation chapter 7, it's the fulfillment of Acts 1:8. It says we see a great multitude from every nation, tribe, people, and language worshiping the Lamb. So that's our mission, to share the gospel with all peoples. And Beijing is a global city. There's people from all around the world that are coming into this city. People that have never heard the gospel, people whose nations are against the gospel. It'd be very difficult for you to go there and share the gospel with them, but they're coming here. So you have people that don't know Jesus, people who aren't interested in Jesus, people where the gospel is minimized in their nation. They're coming to the place that you're living in, the city you're living in, and you get the opportunity to be a part of that great mission that every multitude from every nation, every tribe, every people, every language, worshiping Jesus. So that's our mission. The people is all peoples. And then the scope of that, where we're going to go, how we're going to do that, is all places. So when you read the book of Acts, you're going to notice that they're sharing the gospel in their homes. Acts 2 says they met from house to house. Peter goes to Cornelius' home, and Cornelius brings in his family and friends to hear the gospel. Lydia's home opens up and becomes a center for gospel hospitality in Acts 16. They're sharing the gospel in prisons. Paul and Silas are preaching in prison as they're arrested, and the jailer and his household are baptized because of the gospel being preached in a prison. Paul preaches while he's under house arrest in Acts 28. They're preaching in public spaces. Solomon's portico, the marketplace in Athens, the lecture hall of Tyrannus. So they're not just in homes. They're not just in prisons. They're actually going out in public and sharing the gospel. They're sharing in workplaces. We know Paul worked alongside Aquila and Priscilla as tent makers, and they would in the evenings go house to house and share the gospel. But while they're working in the marketplaces, they're also living out their faith and sharing the gospel alongside the people that are coming to them for their labor. We know in the epistles that slaves were told to work wholeheartedly, to serve their masters, and to be mission focused in that. So they're going about their work. They're they're living the Christian life and sharing the gospel in their workplace. We're also told in the epistles that we're to work wholeheartedly as to the Lord and not to man. So whatever job you have, we're called to go and work as to the Lord. And that work, that labor, is meant to be a labor of first worship to God, but also witness to the world. We see them sharing the gospel in government buildings. Paul gives gospel testimony before the governor Felix and Festus and before King Agrippa. And then they're using the travel routes, to go to these international hubs like Antioch, Corinth, Ephesus, Philippi, Athens, Rome. And so when you think about that, I want you to ask yourself, what are the contexts that are available to me in Beijing that I've not really considered? Maybe you share the gospel in your home, but maybe nowhere else. Or maybe you've been bold enough to share your gospel in the workplace, but maybe you're not sharing it out in public places, like going to a restaurant or going to some expat event and sharing the gospel there. Maybe you've not taken advantage of some of the travel routes that are opening up in China, the Belt and Road Initiative, or maybe some opportunity to go on a cruise. And while you're on that cruise, like you're around people that need the gospel. So I just want you to think creatively. Ask yourself, who are the people around me that are from the nations? It's so easy for us to think like. I hang around people that look like me, that are from my background, that think like me. But the gospel needs to go to all peoples. And so look around and say, hey, I need to get to know that person. I need to get to know that person and share the gospel with them. And then think, secondly, of what are the opportunities that I could create within this city to share the gospel. Creative ways to get out and share the gospel that may be a little uncomfortable for me, but I know that this is what God's calling me to, because as I read the book of Acts and as I read the epistles, I know they're going to all peoples in all places. So I pray the Lord would give you creativity this week as you think about the people and the places that you're going to go to share the gospel with. May the Lord bless you. Amen.